All right, welcome to Higher Achievement's Math Curriculum Overview. My name is Mike DeMarco. I'm Higher Achievement's Director of Program Quality and Evaluation, and I'll be taking you through this training. Okay, so our agenda today, we're going to go over the basics of the math curriculum, including the skills emphasized. I'm going to talk about our pre- and post tests that you'll see in the math curriculum, as well as our red flag tool, implications for the classroom, lesson planning and lesson compression, and individualization of scholar support. So the basics. Our math curriculum is a 20-lesson sequence. It's organized around skill review and skill acquisition. The lessons build on basic skills that include review and from last year and prepare for the upcoming school year. And in the math curriculum, as opposed to our curriculum and the other subjects, there's a smaller emphasis on the cumulative projects. Each of our grades has a thematic unit. Fifth grade, the unit is entitled It's All Fun and Games. So the curriculum emphasizes the use of competitions and games to encourage engagement with foundational math skills. Sixth grade, the Art of Math uses art, mapping, and architecture to encourage engagement and to get scholars to think about the ways that math is applied to different creative subjects. Seventh grade, International Relations Math. This is a really cool curriculum. It's interdisciplinary and tied to the 7th grade Social Studies unit that looks at international relations through a Model UN. And 8th grade, Math in the Community emphasizes the application of math to community concerns. Skills emphasized. In 5th grade, we really emphasize decimals, fractions, equivalents, number line, common multiples, estimation, basic computation, patterns, shapes, and simple measurement. We also practice our times tables every day in 5th grade. In 6th grade, we add some new skills. We add negatives, simple algebra, and graphing. 7th grade, as I mentioned before, there's that connection to social studies. There's lots of computation around data analysis and also of understanding of what that data represents. It's more than just numbers on a paper. It often is representing human conditions, and that it's not just a one on the paper, but it's a person in the world. So that's something that differentiates our 7th grade curriculum. In 8th grade, there's a focus on housing and community building. It's heavy on algebra. It forces the review of computational skills through problem solving. And there's a lot of word problems, a lot of real-world applications of math. Pre- and post tests. So we will be using pre- and post tests this summer. The pre-tests need to occur during the first 2 days of Summer Academy. Obviously, the post-tests during the last 2 days. Your center directors at each site will tell you the specific dates that we'll be implementing these tests at your center. But please know this when you're looking over your curriculum, that you will have to include time for scholars to work on these pre- and post tests. Each test will take about 30 to 45 minutes, so it's almost an entire class period for each of them. And the tests are tied to Common Core standards. So when scholars finish completing these tests, we'll be able to really see their growth in these standards, as well as any areas that they're struggling on the pretest, and provide specific and individualized supplemental work to meet these challenges. Along that line, we have our red flag tool, which is Higher Achievement's early warning indicator system, and it's integrated into all of the Higher Achievement math and literature curriculum, so you'll see it in your math lessons. You see an example of it actually right there on the right-hand side. In the curriculum, you'll see these little flags that I'm pointing to right now. They're on this page. In this lesson, there's one numbered 1 and one numbered 7. They relate to specific Common Core skills that our tool links to, and links to specific supplemental work for scholars. So you'll see these flags throughout the lesson. At the end of every lesson, you'll see this red flag tool. if you remember in the lesson that I had as an example, there was flag 1, which is reason abstractly and quantitatively, and flag 7, place value. This was a lesson on place value. So if you see scholars really struggling with a skill, maybe they're really struggling with that place value skill and really struggling with those questions that you're asking with that little flag with a 7 next to it, you'll actually write their name right here in the line under place value, hand this form to your center director, and your center director will link them with targeted supplemental work to help them in this area and really help build those skills. So you'll find this tool at the end of every lesson, and we'll use it where you're seeing scholars really struggle. Okay, this summer our scholars will be working on some projects in your classes. So 5th and 6th grade will really emphasize building skills rather than the projects, while 7th and 8th grade will apply these skills to cumulative projects. So 7th grade you'll work as the United Nations for an aid supply project, and 8th grade scholars will be designing a mall using their math. We have some common implementation challenges that we've gotten feedback from teachers, so we want to preempt some of those challenges by giving you a heads up and allow you time to begin thinking and preparing for it. So sometimes teachers really struggle with that balance between skills versus application, particularly in the 7th and 8th grade level. So we want to really emphasize our scholars building their skills first and then application of those skills second. Our scholars will have a variety of skill proficiency levels. So some scholars will really grasp the material quickly and be ready to move on, while other scholars will be struggling with more basic skills. So you want to make sure that you're thinking of ways to individualize your support to all scholars. So scholars who are struggling, how you can give them that extra attention using the red flag tool to give them that guided supplemental work they need. For scholars who are grasping it quickly, how can you challenge them to go deeper and really understand the skills and really understand how to apply it to larger real-world problems? And finally, lesson pacing can be a challenge. So, teachers will sometimes get pressed up at the end of the summer, feeling like they're running out of time. So you don't want that to happen. So the best way to avoid that is really, reading through your curriculum before summer starts, planning your lessons at least a week in advance, setting up really strong classroom management procedures, and if you start to get behind early, think about lesson compression, which I will go through in a bit. Okay, so I mentioned that that challenge teachers have sometimes with skills versus application, and just that struggling with the question, when should you emphasize skill and when should you emphasize application? In general, the curriculum will guide you through this challenge with certain exceptions. So when scholars aren't mastering basic skills necessary to move to the application, and when scholars have already mastered the material, that's where we really see challenges. And like I said before, you really want to think of the individual support that you can give to scholars in these areas. Scholars who are lacking the basic skills, how can you get them working on these skills outside of your classroom or even within your classroom? And scholars who have mastered the material and are ready to move on, how can you challenge them to go deeper and apply these skills more broadly beyond just a worksheet? Skill proficiency. So if we really do want to make sure we're individualizing the support we give to scholars, so I want to just emphasize a few things. Make sure that scholars are mastering the foundational skills emphasized in the curriculum before you're moving on to other areas. Some scholars may be a little behind on their skills, but you want to make sure that they are in the upper grades, especially completing the cumulative projects as indicated in the curriculum unit, so they can still work on these projects while building these foundational skills. But use opportunities in the class time to really individualize your support to scholars. So maybe you're doing group work or other, partnering scholars up. Maybe you're showing scholars, scholars who are struggling, you might be showing them some of the work that we'll be doing the next day so that they have an opportunity to review it ahead of time and they're not seeing it for the first time in class. Really thinking of ways to support different scholars. Okay, lesson compression. As I mentioned, there are times where teachers will get behind and they feel like they need to just really rush through the lessons at the end. We want to avoid that as much as possible. So I do want to just point out, if you are going to compress lessons, this is how we do it if you find that your pacing is off a little bit. So lesson compression. Lesson compression can really only take place up until the 4th week of summer academy. After that, the last 2 weeks of lessons, really there's not a lot of time for lesson compression because scholars are working on projects. So if you find yourself behind earlier in the summer is the time that you can compress the lessons. So lesson compression involves taking 2 or 3 lessons, really no more than 3, and compressing them into one lesson. So the first thing you'll do is review the lesson objectives, skills emphasized, and overall curriculum goals for these 2 to 3 lessons. Determine where lesson objectives, where there's an overlap, and then you'll combine associated activities. Anything that's not combined, you'll rank those remaining activities according to how well they align with the goals of the lesson, and implement the activities that are most central to your overall curriculum goals. And by doing this, you'll be able to catch up and get back on track, only if you're falling behind. Summer resources on ISIS. ISIS is our internal higher achievement website where we compile a lot of different resources for teachers. You'll find resources on checking for understanding, Bloom's taxonomy, methods for opening and closing a lesson planning form, tools on verbal and non-verbal cues, and much more. I would strongly encourage you to read through this. You'll find your curriculum here, and to read through the ISIS site before your summer starts, and to check back periodically. There's a lot of tools that will really help you, and the more familiar you are, the more easily you'll be able to recall where tools are on the ISIS site. If you have any questions, you have a lot of support at Higher Achievement. You have your center directors at site. You have your fellow teachers. You have your directors of site operations in each city. And you also have me, Mike DeMarco, the Director of Program Quality and Evaluation. You can always feel free to reach out to me by email. My email is mdemarco@higherachievement.org, or by phone, 202-375-7708. I look forward to seeing you this summer. Thank you for all your work and your support.